Hi everyone, Bill Sheridan with the MACPA here, and we're going to talk a little bit about IFRS today, International Financial Reporting Standards. Seems like we've been on a fast track here in the United States toward IFRS adoption for a while now, and just recently seems like there's been a little bit of pushback from folks here in the States saying, maybe we need to slow down, examine this a little bit more before we jump in with both feet. At the same time, folks overseas are saying, no, you guys in the United States have to get on board the IFRS train now if we're really going to make this work on a global scale. So a couple of conflicting messages there from folks overseas versus people here in the United States kind of left me wondering, where do we stand with IFRS at this point? So who better to talk about all that with than Peter Margaritis. Peter is a CPA. Also an instructor with the Business Learning Institute. He does a number of programs related to IFRS for the BLI, and I had a chance to sit down with him at the recent Maryland CPA Summit to talk about all this, so here's what Peter has to say. So Pete, tell me where we stand with IFRS right now.
I kind of equate it to, it's like that car ride when we were kids. We're in the back seat going, are we there yet? Are we there yet? A lot of people feel that's where we are. Some recent developments, the SEC has recently come out with a staff paper on if we should incorporate IFRS into our system, how would we do it? This came out at the end of last month, which to me was a sign that we're still going down that path. They talk about a couple different methods, but they seem to be leaning down this condorsement, a blend of convergence and endorsement process. They talk about in the staff paper the role of FASB, and that was a critical piece on this. How will we end up? Will FASB go away? Will FASB stay around? Clearly, in this paper, FASB will be still the standard setter in the U.S. In an endorsement method, that anything that's issued by the ISB would come in through FASB. FASB would do the work to determine if we should incorporate it into U.S. GAAP, which ultimately aligns itself with IFRS. And this is kind of the language that the staff paper uses. So I think clearly we are going down this road, that the SEC is making plans to do this. They talk about convergence. Well, the FASB and the ISB were supposed to have everything completed June 30th of this year. That was their target date. However, because of the size of some of these projects, leases, revenue recognition, financial instruments, they pushed those three projects along with insurance contracts into the second half of this year, really into the fourth quarter. They received over 700 comment letters on leases, 900 on revenue recognition, and over 1,000 on financial instruments. So the boards have gone back and created a new process, and a due process system, by having redeliberations. So they're going back and relooking at the standards, the exposure draft, compared it to the comment letters, and say, well, we're going to come out with something in the fourth quarter. And I believe that they're pretty committed to doing that in the fourth quarter, to tie that back to this transitioning piece, because they mentioned in there that completion of the convergence projects will be done in 2011. So that's kind of where we stand. We're still going down that path. It's been a long car ride, but I believe that we're almost there. I still believe that the signs that are out there, that the SEC and FASB are giving us, clearly indicate that by the end of this year, a vast majority of the convergence projects will be done, that a vote will occur. It may be December 31 at 11:59 p.m., but I believe that they will vote. The timing on that vote, or I believe when they say yes, when will implementation occur in the U.S.? Because they don't use the word adoption, and convergence is not really used in the language. It's implementation, and they say anywhere from 5 to 7 years. So that puts us 15, 16, 17 area, which the SEC came out and said in their work plan in 2010 that it won't be sooner than 2015 or 16. So we may just be 1 year pushed back if they're thinking about 2017 right now.
Now, I've been hearing a lot of comments from the international community about that, so-called reluctance on the part of the United States to just jump in with both feet and get on board the IFRS train. I guess a couple of questions come to mind. First of all, when you think of it from the international community's perspective, why this push? Why the rush to get the U.S. on board? And second of all, has that pressure impacted what the United States is doing?
I think the international community is going since 2002 when you guys signed the original memorandum of understanding, and we're now in going into 2011, 2012. Been doing it for 9-10 years. When you have a vast majority of all the major economic powers who are either using, permitting, or have committed to IFRS on board, and I'll use China as an example. In 2007, China has been working with the ISB to go through a convergence process to fully align Chinese standards with the ISB, that project should be completed in 2012. Japan has committed to 2016. So there's all these commitments on the table. There's over 125 countries out there using IFRS. Where's the U.S. in all this? Why are you? And obviously we have the largest economy. There's a lot of ripple effects that I think the SEC is doing the right thing about in their work plan, looking at these 6 areas to make sure that when we incorporate it, we do it right. We think through this process so there's not this huge backlash. And I think they've been doing that. But from the international community, they're going, well, okay, U.S., you have 1 member on the monitoring board. You have 5 members on the foundation and 4 members on the IASB. You have influence. You've had influence in creating these standards. Now, either you're going to be with us, and if you choose not to set a date certain or commit to us, then we don't feel you should have these seats again. And the community is saying, then we will remove you from those seats. Should you come back 2 or 3 years later from now, you would have to accept what we have done over that 2 or 3 year period, and then you have to accept that and go forward. And there's Sir David Tweedy's been putting a lot of pressure. He's retiring on June 30, 2011, and this was his big thing, was to get the U.S. on board with IFRS. It's not going to happen by June 30th, but I think he's got something to walk away with. We are very close. We are closer than we ever were. It's really comes to the point of how are we going to bring it into the U.S. system. And to go back to that staff paper that came out, it appears the SEC is looking at it from 3 different perspectives. 1, the completion of the Memorandum of Understanding, which would happen way before any implementation. So those will be done, and let's hypothetically say it's 2016. Between now and 2016, FASB would be working with the ISB to go, what are those projects out there that we need to converge still? Intangible assets, deferred taxes, some of these things that we pushed off the table to put high priority on. So let's figure out how we're going to do those together and how we will bring those into the system. And then what do we do with those other projects out there that they're not in the scope of any type of convergence, like property, plant, and equipment? How do we incorporate them into the U.S.? Do we accelerate some convergence with them? Or do we say all of these that we are not going to discuss in the immediate future, all right, we're going to incorporate them all as they stand? And I think that's kind of the wild card that's out there. What do we do with these, as they refer to, static IFRS that will remain right now the differences between U.S. and the rest of the world?
So what do CPAs need to know about IFRS at this point?
It's here. It's here. It's been here since I had a client in Tucson, Arizona, copper mining client, purchased by a Mexican company. Mexico's going to 2012. Told the client, you need to be on IFRS by 2012. Not when the SEC tells you. Now. I keep telling CPAs it's already here through the back door. And it's not going to go away. Even if the SEC says we're not going to do this, you've got Canada, you've got Mexico, Japan, all the major economies around. We will run into IFRS somewhere in our career. That's if we don't do it. I believe we will do it. And some of the concern the SEC has is, where's the education and training go? How are we going to get these people up to speed? Because if we can't get them up to speed, where are we going to find those resources? Am I going to have to pick up the phone and call India, call Canada, call Europe, call Australia and say, we need people here in the U.S. to help us with this? And I think the sooner the better. Even though it's 2011, I think the SEC is going to say yes. Any education, read everything that you can on IFRS. Stay up to tune on it because it will be here very, very soon in a large capacity.
Pete Margaritis, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.